time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Fred, who would pick the contract manager here? Who would pick that person, that firm?
What we end up doing, Neil, I'm going to ask you to nearby here. We have a evaluation committee process that has both internal as well as others that would be, they will evaluate each of the proposals, will score it on points, do a whole series of other things, and out of that will come a recommendation. But that recommendation is to you, the board. Only you, the board, may choose, in fact, the contractor. It will be based on those recommendations. Only you may choose.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to note that the Source Evaluation Committee, as we call it, that actually evaluates the proposals, it includes, usually in this case, representatives from the jurisdictions that are affected. City of Milwaukee, Clackamas County, or Portland will obviously be included, as well as our key staff, project managers. We also have our disadvantaged business advocate involved in the selection. So it's a diverse group from throughout the project, but it is primarily a technical review and a technical process at the time.
Yeah, if I didn't ask it right, this construction manager and general contractor, who's picking, who's selecting that firm? Who's going to be that general contractor? How do you go through selecting that? Is that going to be, you putting out that for competitive bid?
Yeah, well, so here's...
Oh, okay.
Here's the
So I understand.
and perhaps the process is we put out an actual request for proposals that goes out to the open marketplace. A number of different firms will respond. They'll submit proposals, they'll come in for interviews.
Yeah.
That group that I talked about will be the one who will, if you will, judge and score on a technical basis the results of those that proposal, those interviews. Then make a recommendation to me, and which is then forwarded to you.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate it, because I didn't want that just someone selected to be there. And I do believe in the best values I've seen before, not the low bidder, and I believe in the selection of local contractors versus out-of-state contractors to come in here and do work. You know, I've expressed that before, and I think others on the board have talked about that. So, hey, I mean, we're certainly going to be looking at that hard, you know. But I know you've done that in the past.
Right, and I would also just note that I believe that this method of contracting allows us to really evaluate many different factors, including technical competence and price, but also their alignment with our other goals that we hold dear here at TriMet. So,
Thank you.
Follow-up question from you. Just in following up with I appreciate the non-competitive part of selecting the general manager and the construction manager, trying to eliminate the whole thing of a low bid and then change orders. What is in place once this general manager, construction manager is chosen, that this particular company or firm does not revert back to low bids and then want to add change orders? Change orders drive me crazy because it seems like it's a built-in way for and I know sometimes the change orders come because of what the builder or developer wants, but I think a lot of them come because the person wants to get in low and then they want to change to go high. And that's the part that's always bothered me on projects. And so I want to make sure that in doing it this way, that we're not going to deal with a firm that's going to revert back to that and then all of a sudden start adding things in.
Dr. Bethel, I couldn't agree with your comments more. Yes, I hate change orders too. But what we do, I mean, there is no, frankly, silver bullet related to this. The real world throws contracting, real problems that need to be dealt with, and sometimes it does require changes. But what we do by involving the contractor during the design is that what that really lets us do is make sure that we have a clear and consistent view of what the project entails and what it's going to require. And so sometimes it's very hard to describe that in a series of documents and rules of engagement. Every rule you make, there's often an exception. So what this really allows the contractor to be over the shoulder of the designers and our project management staff to really make sure there's that consistent understanding of what the project entails. And it's been our history, and frankly, very successful, that we've been very successful, if you will, at actually achieving the goal of very low, generally not known, but very low change order percentages, usually in the single digits, where frankly around the country, something that is very commonly 10 to 15 to 18%. One of the reasons we made this change in sort of contracting methodologies is actually learning from our experience. First of all, in the West Side Light Rail project, where, for example, the project in downtown Portland, for that project, had an 18% change order. Since then, our major contracts have been 3, 4, 5% change orders. So, and those are usually dealing with very real projects, problems in the ground that nobody could predict at the outset. So, I think this is aimed at exactly the problem that you described.
Dr. Bethel, and maybe for the board as a whole, I mean, just to use two examples, and Neil and I talked so much about these things, but let's just say, for example, a bidder underestimates the price of steel. Our perspective is, unless there was something well beyond extraordinary, that's their problem, not ours. It's not going to be covered. But a very real issue was, for example, on I-205, there was geological, geotechnical information about what was under the area where construction was going to have to occur. They were going to have to do piers and other kind of construction. Both the Oregon Department of Transportation and others had certain geological information available. The bidder operated on the basis of that. When they got in there, they found much bigger and more rock than was expected. Those are something that we would work with them and say, listen, you relied upon this geotechnical information, and we have then a responsibility to be able to address it. So it's the area of who has that responsibility. We oftentimes take, for example, the responsibility for the permitting process, other government permitting. If somehow that slows down and there are costs, we say, hold it, we want to manage that better, and we try to take responsibility. So it's on an individual basis, but we do expect that anything that is at risk for that contractor, that's their good judgment, they're going to pay for, and they're going to get it out of the change order.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve? Second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.